guardrail. I'm going to go get that. So I open up the backpack, and he's got like a hockey. He's not a hockey. He's got a like a ski mask. He's got camo gear. He's got several handguns. And then I see this long wire, and on the end of it is something I had never seen before. And it was a blasting cap detonator. It took him probably, I don't know, I want to say like 2 miles to pull over. And of course, he's up against the guardrail. And we had learned that his comment was that he had thought about shooting it out with me. But when I walked up to the car, I looked like a mother, and I might have kids at home.
As most people know, I have a huge passion for interdiction in general. So I've reached out to some legendary interdiction officers across the country, and knowing the mentality of a lot of interdiction officers, they don't like talking about themselves. So I knew it was going to be a challenge, but I was able to get several that agreed to jump on a podcast and explain how important interdiction is, how they get involved, all these other things. And I mainly was looking for the generation before me, because I wanted to understand if the motivation and inspirations are similar, and why they think interdiction is important, how things have changed. Lucky for me, a lot of the ones that have said yes are very influential in my interdiction career, have had a major impact in it. That being said, the first podcast is with Stacey Arnold from Ohio Highway Patrol. Early in my career, maybe 2013, 2014, somewhere around there, Sean Smart was teaching a class, and he showed videos of her. It was the first time, I think, that I've seen interdiction traffic stops from beginning to end, and her demeanor, the way she conducted these stops, and how she was able to speak to people throughout that stop, and how she came off as just very human-like, and not so much of a robotic cop, was very inspirational. So when she said that she would do the podcast with me, I was thrilled, just because of the impact that she's had on my career personally, let alone many interdictors across this country. She talked specifically about 2 cases that had great impact on me personally, and just the demeanor during those traffic stops and those types of things. So I hope you guys find a lot of benefit in it. Stacey's been a great positive influence in the community, in the interdiction community, in the police community, and she's had an unmeasurable amount of impact on my career personally. So check it out. Let me know what you think.
So you got to ask yourself, why do you want to do this? What keeps you motivated to stay proactive and get bad guys off the street?
The facts is a big cannon against a little tiny gun of opinions, because we've all heard people give us their opinions.
Let's talk about how easy it is to get narcotics in this country.
Once they're in this country, anywhere within 2 days, the drugs will be in our cities.
Because we know knowledge is power.
There we go. It's good.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it's really good. What's that?
That's like I get to watch your son wrestle.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah, he's doing really good right now. Yeah, we're having a huge snowstorm. I'm sure you guys have the same thing passing through. So they just got school canceled for tomorrow, and so they're jumping for joy. I'm like, oh brother, my house is like the plague right now. It's oh yeah, we got the influenza A and norovirus running through. So.
And you're okay.
Oh yeah.
You haven't got sick yet?
Not yet.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah. So is that your house, or is that like your basement, or what is that?
This is my garage.
Nice.
So like it's a 3-bay garage, and during COVID we couldn't do anything. So the wife and I like to have people like be social.
Sure.
And we couldn't do social. So I paid one of my buddies that came in, and he like put like polyurethane on the floor, so it's easy to wipe everything up. And then this one bay, we made it into a bar completely.
Like there's a
That's
TV
cool.
here, there's a TV over there, and it's all like sports memorabilia and stuff.
Right.
It's nice though. We don't have a basement, so
Yeah.
it's a nice space when we have people over, and then you go right at my door and it's like the laundry room and then a bathroom, so I can like literally block it off, especially with my 2 police dogs. I can block it off and I could have people over. They never have to go into my house really, besides like this little area.
Nice.
So nice and keeps it
Nice and
secluded.
sharp. Yeah. Good deal.
All
So
right.
how'd your last interview go? Good?
No, you're my first one, so I'm happy that
Oh.
I reached out to you first, just because I don't know, because of all the work you've done, and then the way you left was kind of shitty. But I don't want to talk about that all. But like the whole thing, and I don't remember. I met you. You probably don't remember this, but I met you. I think I went to Sean's class, and maybe he just showed videos, and then I met you maybe a year after that.
Yeah.
Because Sean was teaching by himself then, but I remember he was showing videos, and then you spoke at one of the conferences, and you were talking about a robbery suspect that was completely like a psychopath, and then I think you also talked about a white dude from like South Africa with a bunch of kilos.
Yeah, that was the motorhome. Yeah, that was probably the video showed.
So like those two are like like stick out of my mind. And that was probably at least 10 years ago, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So like
probably.
So when I started to think about it, I was like, man, those two had a huge impact on me personally. So I was like, I'm gonna ask her first to see who you would suggest and if you'd be willing to do it. After you, I have Cody tonight.
You have Cody Smith?
Yeah.
Nice.
So I met him. I spent 11 days down in El Paso with him. He was the instructor for Epic and Diac. So I have a relationship. So that's what I'm slowly reaching out to people that I have a relationship with before I start cold calling people and get shut down, and then I'm like, this is a waste of my time. But at least I'll have some of them. I'm
Cody's a good guy. You'll have to tell him I said hello.
I will for sure.
He's friends with me on social media, so I get to see his posts and stuff, but I haven't talked to him in a while.
Me either. I would randomly talk to him occasionally, kind of like you, sporadically.
We are thrilled to announce that we have expanded our partnership with HPTRT. Now, if you use the code RED, you will get 50% off all of your purchases. HPTRT are the best in the game. They're founded by first responders, and they are targeting first responders, knowing that first responders need the most help. So if you need anything from peptides to hormones, TRT, even general health, they'll hook you up. I know most men my age are on some type of peptides or testosterone replacement therapy. I mean, no one ever wants to end up getting their ass kicked by Nolan Ryan, especially when Nolan Ryan was double Robin Ventura's age. So check out HPTRT. Use the code RED to get 50% off.
So I actually joined the patrol in 1994. And I was a road officer for about 4 years. And then at the time we had centralized teams. We had like a north team and a south team. And there was a sergeant that was in charge of each of those teams. One sergeant for the teams, and then we had a canine handler for each team, and then 2 troopers. And I had an interview for that spot, and I got the north team in Toledo, Ohio, and I got that in about 1998. So I was a road trooper for about 4 years, and then I transferred into the interdiction team. And I can remember, when I first started doing it, we used to work Interstate 75, and I stopped a vehicle, I don't know, maybe the first week, and hit 3 keys of coke. And I thought, man, this is easy. I was addicted right then and there. I didn't hit another load for 2 years, and it was the longest 2 years of my life. There were guys on the team that were getting dope all around me, and I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. And at that time, I was fairly young. I graduated the academy when I was 21, 22 years old. And I had some guys that I worked around that gave me some advice. And one of the things that always stuck with me was that, you need to humble yourself and you need to ask for help. And so that's what I did. I'm like, tell me what I'm doing wrong. And one of the things that I was told was you need to try to stop 10 vehicles a day, 10 quality vehicles, so that you can establish a baseline. And once you know what's normal, when something is out of the norm or inconsistent with the innocent motoring public, it will stand out like a sore thumb. And so after the 2-year mark, and I learned to ask for help. And I probably at the time was probably like the bratty sister that wouldn't just go away, because I was always up in their business and, what are you looking at? What are you doing? What are you seeing? And, showing up to their stops and, looking over their shoulder while they're searching vehicles, because I didn't know what I was doing. After that, I hit 200 pounds in a motorhome on Interstate 80. And I can remember the dope being in a hidden compartment in the closet of the motorhome, a false wall. And I just remember I was so overcome with emotion that I started to tear up. And it wasn't that I was crying because I was, that type of a person, but I was just so elated that I couldn't control myself. I was like, I finally, everything I've been doing and everything that I took to heart from what all the other guys around me were telling me to do, it finally paid off. And then it was like it was like a light bulb just went off. And then it started to flow. And I started to become one of the guys that was hitting consistently. Obviously interdiction, you have dry spells. It is what it is. But it was, like I said, it was like a light bulb went off. It was like, finally.
So who, if you can tell me, who were those, some of the ones that gave you that advice?
Well, let's see. At the time I had, my main partner was Al Romero, and we were partners for, gosh, I want to say like 15 years. And in the interdiction community, that's kind of unheard of, to have a partner that long. I worked around another sergeant, Dean Laubacher. He was, he was successful. That was kind of the North team. Tim Stockman, he was the canine handler. I learned a lot from him because he was really old school. He worked with a couple guys that, around the time before I even was doing it, they used to call him Batman and Robin. It was back in the days where, you search vehicles and you just leave the stuff on the side of the road, and let the bad guy put it back together. Everybody's heard about that. Well, those guys were doing it and finding stuff and getting into everything. This was before the time of Epic and, DIAP, and when they didn't have cell phones and, none of that stuff. None of the technology that the guys have today, but it was more accumulation of just, I think, me being in the right place at the right time and picking up on stuff that the guys were telling me and even things that they weren't telling me, just watching what they were doing. And, I always try to tell some of the younger guys, it's like, if you want to be the best, you got to mimic what the best do, and then you have to pick and choose what works for you, and then you tailor how you do your job. But you got to surround yourself with good people.
Has Ohio always had a foundation of amazing interdiction? Like, I know, like, your era, like Sean Smart's era, but like, I don't know that there's an era before that, I'm guessing, based on the stuff you said.
Yeah, there was interdiction teams when I came on when I started in '94. There were already interdiction teams in place. At that time, like Sean always would teach, they were doing human behavior, assessing human behavior long before it was even talked about. It was something they were doing, but nobody ever put it out on paper, or nobody ever taught how to do it in a formalized setting. And the guys that were before me, Ohio did have have interdiction, and the lieutenant at the time that was running it, that created it, and Bill Healy was another mentor, and he was phenomenal in the support that he gave to the teams. So the strategically placed, there were teams throughout the state. Eventually it dwindled down to just canine handlers. And it was more of one or two troopers might be temporarily assigned to the canine handler and work interdiction. But, you know, things happen within the division and things change. So you just have to adapt.
When you were in general patrol, were you out there trying to work interdiction, or was it just something that you were drawn to, and then once you got in, you were able to do it?
Yeah, so I was fortunate because I worked out of Northwest Ohio, like the headquarters side of the patrol area. And so the first, 3.5 years that I was on road patrol, I varied from rarely day shift, but mostly I liked afternoons because that's when like the bad guys, in my opinion, would come out, and I would work the first, I don't know, maybe 3 to 4 hours of my shift. I would bust ass to try to, write my tickets and patrol high crash areas and respond to calls. And then the second half of my shift, I would use that to do what I wanted to do to try to get into any kind of drug case. I mean, I took anything that I could get my hands on. And it was mostly smaller stuff because I didn't know how to do interdiction. So because I was centrally located, we had two teams with the North and the South, and I was kind of in the middle. So anytime that the guys would get something, they would bring it to headquarters to do, their thorough search and to process the case. And I would try to hurry up and respond so I could see what they were doing. And there was such a high energy, and it was so motivating to watch. Like, I wanted to be a part of that. I just didn't know how to do it because they had their thing, and then I had responsibilities I had to do as a road trooper. So that's why I try to, tell younger guys, it's like, yes, you can get into interdiction, but you have to, do what your department asks first and foremost, and then try to work it in. There's ways to do it. You just have to figure out what's best.
Yeah, it's I think even just coming out of academy, I didn't work interdiction until I had 5 years on, and I feel like that you lay a foundation of like, I'd rather make mistakes on like minor dope cases and stuff, and then instead of trying to all of a sudden I get like 3 kilos, and I'm like, and then that's the case that goes to court, and I'm like, I have no idea because this is the first time I've been in front of a judge. So I think I know guys want to come out of the academy and do that stuff, guys and girls like that, if they have those aspirations, but I think you got to kind of, and I don't like this, but like the dues, you have to understand, so much more about being a cop than just interdiction before you can do interdiction at minimum on the court aspect of it, just to be a well-rounded officer. So I know it kind of sucks for guys because they want those specialties, but I think that you have to pay somewhat of a kind of dues. Like, I don't think you even know how to be a cop. Even at 5 years, I probably was lost, like you learn so much as time goes on as a cop. Coming out of the academy and trying to work some specialty, I think it would be detrimental to your career almost.
Agree. And when I started, you had to have 4 years minimum. I mean, it was like a countdown waiting for that 4-year mark. And even then, there's so much more that that you need experience with. Well, 4 years at the time for us was a cutoff. I think eventually they changed it to 2 years. I'm not sure. And my personal belief, I agree with you. You need to have the experience. There should be a cutoff. There should be a set time that they have to be on road patrol first. But there's things that they can do to get involved. I mean, they can go to conferences or schools or even local stuff, or, make contacts or do what follow them around, find out what they're doing, make, the networking part of it. They can start working on that before they actually get on the unit.
Yeah, I was annoying. I still am like, well, starting interdiction, I was annoying. There's only it was weird because there were so many people that around me, well, not a lot, but I mean, there's enough people in the state that I thought I had some guidance that would help me out. But then when it came down to it, there's about 3 that were willing to help me. The rest made it seem like I was asking for like CIA secrets and shit. So I was like, okay, like, I mean, like, there's someone taught you, like, I'm not here to like, I want to learn. So I'm forever grateful for those 3 or 4 that really like helped me out in my younger career anyways.
You always have that with, I mean, anywhere you go, and I've seen that as well. I'm not that person, at least I don't think I portray myself as that person. I've always thought to myself, like, I would hate to have what I have in my head go down into the grave with me. I want to share that information. I still teach classes and people still show up, and so I want to pass that along.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Like,
It's unfortunate that guys don't. That was happening though back in the 90s. They just don't want to share information. They want to hoard stuff.
I don't think it's ever going to change it for whatever reason. I've had some good bosses, and they've all kind of instilled like, you're basically training your replacement. So find someone, mentor them, train them to replace you, and then so we have like a good, I guess, I don't know, like chain of that. Like, so if I wanted to be promoted, or what if I want to, like, there's people that will take you under your wing and guide you in every aspect of our department. So it is good in that aspect of it. But when it came to interdiction, my department had no interdiction team. So I'm asking people from outside agencies and things along those lines. And I think maybe that's part of the animosity, kind of, where people are like, well, if you come up here, you might take something away from our department. I don't know. I don't even know the mindset. I can't figure it out. But I told myself earlier, like, if I got lucky enough, and even if I'm right or wrong, I'm going to tell everyone what I saw, what I did, and how I got there. And, if it works for you, cool. If it doesn't, like, maybe it's a tool that you can use some portion of that or something along those lines.
Exactly. I agree.
So from 3 kilos, your next stop was 200 kilos or 200
My
pounds?
next stop was 200 pounds of weed. Yeah, at a motorhome. An eastbound motorhome, driven by a white female with 2 males in the back of the motorhome. And I can see the closet as I sit here. So yeah, it was a relief. Like I said, the light bulb kind of went off then, and I realized, the stuff that I had been doing and the things that the guys were telling me to look for, and watching behavior. And again, we did that, but we didn't know how to explain how we did it, if that makes sense. There wasn't really classes on, human behavior, and gosh, all the stuff that they have now, the classes and all the terminology is different, and putting different spins on the same terminology, and it was very basic in plain English, and doing those things, it was finally paying off and hit. And then, in our team, we were very fortunate because I worked Interstate 80, and in the spot that we worked, Interstate 80 and 90 ran together. And so, it separates out into the state of Washington and California and New York and Massachusetts. And we were right in the center of it. And so it was, some days we would hit 2 loads in one day. Occasionally we would hit 3 loads in a day, because we didn't want to come off the road. We'd be like, okay, one more. Let's just watch one more group of cars coming at us, or trucks or whatever. And we'd go on vacation, and we couldn't wait to get back to work. We didn't want to go on vacation. We wanted to stay on the road, and we came out early and we stayed late. And just having that adrenaline rush is a motivator in and of itself. Even if we didn't get into anything, because there were times where we would go, weeks without anything, and we were like, what do we need to do? And as a group, we came together, we're like, what do we need to do different? So we would change it up, and we would switch, and we'd work like a week of midnights, and we'd come out and we might hit one. And then we'd go back to the day shift, and we worked a lot. That's mostly the shift that we worked was day shift. It was rare for us to go off that. So I was very fortunate in the area that I worked in having, talking about like, not just the guys that I worked around, but the whole network of all interdictors, like all the old school guys. We didn't have eventually we had computers in our cars, but we didn't have, buster boxes and density meters and, all that stuff. But what we did have was a network, and we would call each other, and over the years made hundreds of phone calls to guys in Oklahoma and Texas and Kansas and Indiana and, Pennsylvania, and just calling the phone, hey, this is coming, or hey, we just missed it, or we let it go, or hey, I got this stuff, the same stuff that you guys do today. Hey, we got this stop and I can't find it. Where should I look? Or, it was nice to have that. And then being able to come to conferences, at that time, there was really just one main conference back then and for the whole year. And you couldn't wait to go there because you'd see all your buddies, and I would see all my friends from across the country that I didn't get to see, but that time. So I had a good career in that aspect.
Yeah, even to this day, the interdiction network is better than any other network in law enforcement, as the aspect of, if someone needs contacts in another state, I'm the first person, or one of the interdiction guys around here. Hey, do you know anyone in Pennsylvania? Like our normal detectives, hey, do you know anyone in Arizona? They come through the interdiction guys first because of just the contacts we've built, because the contraband starting somewhere and it's traveling all the way across the country, and eventually you probably have contacts in your phone from every place in the state, or every place in the country, just because you've had cases involving every state.
Yeah, or you go into your phone and you hit the contact, and all you do is like type in the initials for the state, like PA, and like a whole list of guys come up. You're like, yeah, which one do I pick? Which one is comparable for what this person needs? Yeah, it's nice. I was called interdiction, like it was like the elite of the elite. Everybody wanted to be a part of it, but I really don't think it's for everybody. Sometimes we would say you either got it or you don't, and that's not to be discouraging to anyone. It's just, I wouldn't purport myself to try to be a motor cop or a technical crash investigator. I would try my best, but it's just not. I'm just not in my DNA. It takes a certain kind of individual to be an interdictor.
Yeah, I've had so since I started, I've had a couple partners, but the way my agency does, you get like about a year of a part-time assignment, and then they give you another 6 months to see. But with that, I've only had one partner that was really good, and that was really successful. They're all really good people. They're all good cops. Like one works for the FBI now. The other one's like a lieutenant. They've all been promoted. They've all, so they're great cops. Just interdiction wasn't their little niche thing, but they were great cops in general. It is a very interesting. I think you need a special person with the ability to like listen, be patient, be empathetic, understanding, and like all of these things at once. And I don't know. I think you have to. Interdiction guys, I think as an interdiction guy, you have to check your ego, because you're going to be dealing with people that are going to lie to you the whole time, and if you take that personally, you can't get further in a conversation. Like, I know people lie to me, and I just agree to their lies and just keep moving on. It doesn't bother me. I know you're lying to me right now, but if I see a lot of cops that will hammer on that lie, like, oh, I know you're lying to me, and then they just like start hammering it, and like all you're doing is creating animosity. There's no reason even, he's lying, just keep moving on. Like, he's lying. That's a win for you. Now let's keep building that reasonable suspicion. The more he lies to you, and then go from there. You don't need to.
Yeah. Use that to your benefit instead of creating tension. It's not, instead of having somebody shut down.
It took me a while to learn that, though. I'm not gonna lie. Like I watched some of my old videos, and I'm kind of a smartass in general, and people lie to me, and I'd be like, oh, so you didn't do this, and then I'm like, as time goes on, I'm like, I'm so much better. Like, I don't even mean to say it. Like, I was just like, it was in my head, and it would like come out. Like, I had no filter when they would lie to me. And as time goes on, I'm like, okay, they lied to me. Don't bring it up. Just keep moving on. But you have to have, I don't know. I think that was the
Comes
biggest,
with experience.
100%. What influenced you as a young cop, or what motivated you as a young cop to get into the interdiction world? Is there any, like, for me, I have family members that are drug addicts. So when I became a cop, like, my goal was like, if I could save one kid from going through that lifestyle, and I was like, oh, if I could just save that one person. And then I realized what kilos were, and I was like, well, shit, if I could get 1,000 of those, like, maybe I can get 2 or 3 kids out of that situation. So early in my profession, that was a lot of my motivation to do interdiction.
You know, you go through the academy, they show you all the different avenues of what the division or what your department offers, right? And, you know, looking at that, it looked interesting. It looked like those guys had a huge rush. You know, certainly their trophy shots and their photographs definitely, you know, it draws you in. And like I said, I was very fortunate because I was centrally located. So anytime that the teams brought something in, you know, you feel the energy in the room. And I wanted to be a part of that because I had a canine handler that I ended up working with and then went to a canine school with as well, say to me, you know, you can either fight the drug war a gram at a time or a pound at a time. It's your choice. And I never forgot that. And so, yeah, I used the quote unquote gram at a time to get me into a place where I could work more poundage at a time. But watching those guys, you know, tear into a vehicle and bring out large packages, how could anyone not be intrigued by that? How could you not be drawn in? You know, that's why I say, like, it takes a special person to do interdiction. So some guys, and that's okay. Like, some guys weren't interested in doing interdiction. That's totally fine. But for me, I had to have that. I had to be part of it. I just needed I needed people to help me get to where I was at.
Yeah, especially like the first time you see it, I think you either get hooked or you don't. And I think that's a good gauge for young officers. Like, if you see someone else get a kilo and you don't have anything that's going on, like where you get excited or adrenaline up or anything along those lines, like then like that's not going to be for you. What's nice about my agency now is, as through the field training process, all the new people get to come ride with me for a day. And I just had a dude that rode with me over the summer. We got to stop and I had like 150,000 and the dude was like in awe, but now he's hooked. Like, he just came out of the academy and he wants nothing more to do than go work interdiction. So hopefully he stays on that path, and I think he'd be great at it. He's a young kid, but put 4 or 5 years in patrol and he's already got that motivation to do it. I'm excited for him to see what his future holds.
It's good. I think too, like when I was very young, very young, you know, my parents used to say that I either wanted to work at a car wash or be a cop. So apparently I wanted to be a cop for a really long time. Somehow I didn't see working at a car wash in my future. So interdiction was where I landed.
That's awesome. What do you think has changed in the interdiction world, good or bad?
Boy. Sometimes I look at, you know, I see posts and I see things, videos, and it's like, for those of us that have retired, we're kind of living vicariously through you guys. And before I go down that avenue, because that's a hard pill to swallow. But I think some of the technology that you guys use and some of the things that you use, I think to myself, gosh, what could we have done back when I first started had we had that? And even though we were successful, it's like, what could we have done even better? And where would technology have been today had we had that back then? I think that I do think that there is a place for it. And at the same time, I think sometimes it can hinder cops doing interdiction because they lose that one-on-one with actually talking to people. And you touched on it earlier with just listening skills. And I think to myself, yeah, the technology is great, but at the same time, you don't need that either. You don't need it. You can do interdiction and be successful and be great if you just slow down and take your time and listen and use your skills and use what you've learned in your mind and your contacts and things like that. So I think technology has a positive and a negative. Also, too, I think there's a lot of competition. I think that there's a lot of maybe animosity, if you will, that has accumulated over the years with different groups and different organizations, and everybody wants to be bigger and better. And I think in their heart of hearts, they want to help. But over the years, there has been a lot of tension, and that's a shame. That doesn't have to be that way, because we all want the same goal. We all want the same thing, and we all want to do right by people and make things safe and take bad guys off the streets. And so conferences are great to go to, but they can also be very overwhelming.
When you talk about animosity is something different, but I think competition, like a healthy competition, like for the people that I work with in this area, like I'm super happy when they get loads. But
Sure.
it also motivates me now, like, all right, now I have to go get one, or I want it to be better than yours. And that, not like I'm mad, I'm ecstatic for you, but now it's like, all right, now it's my turn to go put something on the table. And I think that healthy competition is good. Now, if you have that animosity where you're like, F that guy or something along those lines, like
Right.
I don't think that's going to go over well.
I think that, maybe to clarify a little bit, the animosity between different groups over the years, larger groups, trying to put information out and trying to have bigger and better seminars or conferences or whatever, has created a lot of tension over the years, and that part is disheartening. However, friendly competition, absolutely, we used to do it as well. And Sean would tell you, whenever his team was on fire, we were cold as ice. And it used to piss us off, because he would call and sometimes we would be funny and he'd call and say he got something, we would just hang up on him. But when we were hot, they were cold as ice. I don't know what it is. His team worked on 70, we worked on 80, and there was that friendly competition. It does motivate you. So that aspect is good. It's when there's infighting, I guess, if you will. And I'm talking about like nationwide. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I completely. I knew what you meant when you were going with that conversation. Yeah. I agree there. I think that trying to word it the right way without pissing anyone off. I just think that we all get in this profession because our ultimate goal, especially in interdiction, is to stop narcotics from flowing through this country, or contraband, or criminals, or however you want to look at it. And I think that at some point, individuals start to see a monetary gain, and then that's where the animosity might come into play. And that's just my personal opinion.
Sure.
And that's where I think that, we all have one mission, one goal, pretty much. So if we just stick to that, focus on that, and not worry about that monetary gain or whatever else is driving that animosity, I think it would be better for the profession in general. I think that goes, that's just not interdiction. There's a lot of like Canine World and SWAT teams and all these other things, like they all have that. Sure. We just are in the interdiction world, so we see it more than those other avenues of the profession. What are your hopes for the future of interdiction? And if there's someone that's aspiring to be an interdiction officer, what is some advice that you would give them?
What's the first part of your question again?
Like as a whole, like how can we prolong interdiction to like not let it go away? And like, where do you see, or where do you hope interdiction will be in 10, 15, 20 years as a whole? And then for like, say, an individual officer that's listening to this that wants to do interdiction, what are some advice for him or her?
Yeah, so prolonging interdiction, I think, starts with the higher ups of the department or of any department. I think convincing them the good work that interdiction officers do, and I'm talking like they need to be on the road with you or invite them on a ride along or have your prosecutor come out for a ride along. People don't know what they don't know. And so they have to be taught. You just don't and I like to use the analogy, just because I've flown on a plane doesn't make me qualified to fly one. So they need to come out and see what it is that you're doing. And for the future of interdiction, I think it just starts with education, educating in the higher ups so that down the road, you will have the support. You don't have to try to play catch up. And for younger officers, actually, for the future of interdiction, I hope I live long enough to see some really cool technology with like AI and stuff come out, and how interdiction officers can use that to their benefit, and where that's going to take us.
With a comment on that, me and one of my buddies in New York, but he used to work in interdiction, and now he's like a lieutenant, does some stuff, but he's a really good computer guy. And I always tell him, I'm like, you need to create some little device like for cops to wear, and it just picks up on deception and lies. So you have a little like computer, and it's like, nope, he's lying. Like I'm like, yeah. There has to be a way that someone will come up with something like that. It'll make this profession so much easier if you just have something that says like, oh, he's being deceptive.
I know.
I think it's possible.
I'm sure that it will happen. Maybe not in my day, but maybe in yours.
That would be cool to see.
Yeah, for younger officers, I always try to tell guys, like, you are in charge of your own destiny. You have to take charge of your own career. What path you want it to go on is up to you. I've already done my interdiction time. Now it's your turn, and you make it what you can. Sometimes, I can remember, just to relate to what advice I'd give to younger guys, relating it to our own or my own experiences. We didn't have the funding to be able to go to conferences. We didn't have the funding to go out of state or go to classes. There were several that I paid for out of my own pocket. But you have to find ways to be able to do that. Younger guys, if they're in a small department and they want to go somewhere and it's not in the budget, go to your prosecutor's office, educate them on what you're doing, and ask them for funding. Ask them to dip into their law enforcement budget and get at least a portion of it paid for. You have to find creative ways. And that goes back to networking too. Like, hey, you're from a small department, so am I. How is it that you got here? Like, can you give me some advice? You have to ask for help. You have to, same advice I got, you have to humble yourself and you have to ask for help. You have to be open-minded, but you also have to listen to what guys are telling you. Surround yourself with successful people, pick and choose, mimic them, right? If there's, and as long as it's good and lawful and, following policy and procedure for your area, mimic what the successful people are doing. And then once you start to become successful, then you tailor that, but then you pass on that knowledge to the next person.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And that's where I get afraid, is that knowledge is going to stop being passed down generationally. And whether it will be like my generation that doesn't pass it along, or whether it be the younger generation that doesn't show an interest in it. And that's a lot of what I fear. I don't know. I feel like interdiction is probably one of the most productive and beneficial aspects of law enforcement. And if it was to go away, I would be an old man devastated at home. Like, this is.
Wait till you retire.
I'm not too thrilled about it, to be honest with you. I still love going to work every day. That's
a hard pill to swallow, and not just for me, but all interdiction guys, all the old timers, and the guys that I grew up with, taking advice from and watching their videos and asking them, for information. And, we're all still out here, for the younger guys, we're all still out here. And like I said, we live vicariously through you guys, and that's a hard transition.
Yeah, I can only imagine. It's a lot of was it like dopamine hits that from you getting
Right.
kilos and finding stuff, then it's like you're not gonna get there again if you're done with this. What we'll end up with 2 questions. The first one, what is the most memorable interdiction stop, seizure, or funny story that you have?
Boy.
I know there's been a lot, so
Gosh. I guess probably the motorhome that Sean shows a lot. Just because you talk about being in the right place at the right time. I mean, a motorhome gets stopped going west, and then 10 days later, I stop another motorhome with the same individual going east. And the guy had been stopped several times. He got cut loose several times by interdiction guys. And that happens because you're going to miss stuff. You're only human. And he ends up, 150 keys, 148 keys of coke. And I always tell people, like, I should have played the lottery that day, because interdiction is a little bit of luck and a little bit of being in the right place at the right time. It's skill, but it's being in the right place at the right time. And I think the funny part is that I had a guy that was working with me, and I don't remember if he was actually on the team or he was just a temporary. I think he was a temporary at the time, and we're watching opposite directions of travel, and we always sat close together. So if one guy pulled out, you would tell your partner sitting next to you, hey, this is what I'm looking at for safety reasons. And we're sitting there, and it started to rain. And this had to have been just a few minutes before the stop. And I said, you know what we ought to do? I said, we ought to stop a motorhome today and search the inside of it so we don't get wet. And sure as shit, like 10 minutes later, here comes this motorhome, and all the signals are there, all the behavior things are there, and lo and behold, it's 150 keys, and that was a really good day. I mean, I can remember calling my partner on the phone and be like, if you're not sitting down, you might want to lay down, because I've got the same guy that you had 10 days prior, and now he's going east, and his story just fell apart. And it was right around 9/11, and he was taking a motorhome for a test drive from California or Oregon out to the East Coast, taking it for a test drive, and for the anniversary of 9/11, because how, people try to relate to you, so they throw stuff out there, and same thing with you. It's like, okay, just let them keep feeding you, let them keep lying to you, just taking it all in. So yeah, that turned out to be a good day.
Were you on the previous stop? Were you there?
I was on the previous stop. Yeah, I was a canine handler.
And did he recognize you at all? The driver?
So on the previous stop, I should tell you, like, my partner and I, he was a canine handler and I was a canine handler. We often call each other on each other's stops to walk the dog, just for court purposes. And my dog hit, and we searched it. We couldn't find anything, and it was a rental. And so when I stopped him, the same guy going eastbound, I recognized him just when I ran the plate. And when he stepped out of the motorhome, I probably had a change in behavior all by myself, because I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I was so excited. And post interview, he said he recognized me, and I think his wording was, I stepped outside and I saw it was you. He's like, I knew I was cooked.
That's awesome.
It worked out really well. That was a really good day.
How was that his first trip, or has he been making multiple trips?
No, he made multiple trips. He worked for a cartel, and actually the head of the cartel, or at least that portion of it, and out of California, was a female. And so on his westbound trip, he was the driver of this rental, and there was a younger Hispanic couple, and and their kids, and they were on vacation together. And he was probably in his like 40s maybe, and the younger couple was maybe in their 20s, late 20s. And it just, that's not right. For not that people can't do that, but it just wasn't the normal what we typically would see. And when we searched it, he had actually gotten stopped in that same motorhome going east, and I think it was in Kansas, and he got searched, interdiction guys, and they didn't find nothing on that eastbound trip. He had 70 kilos. Then he comes back westbound, he gets stopped by us, and he had $2 million in the gas tank, and we missed it. And I'll tell you, and I'm not ashamed to say it because things happen. It's a learning experience. It was a rental motorhome, and we searched the hell out of it, and we didn't check the tank, and we didn't make that mistake ever again. But he continued on west, and then 10 days later, here he comes back east. Now he's by himself in a privately owned motorhome, and he steps out, and he had actually gotten stopped again and searched, and nothing found. So you can imagine, with any smuggler, their confidence level continues to build. But I stopped him in the same location, just in the opposite direction. And I'm sure that he may have been a little bit more calm, or may have gotten away with it had it not been myself that made the stop. And it's not trying to toot my own horn. It's just the interaction between him and I, because of the previous interaction 10 days prior, just made his adrenaline, off the chart. And he had a false compartment underneath the bed of the motorhome, and had 148 kilos in there. And he did a controlled delivery. And when they went out to New York, he drove it to a junkyard out there. And they ended up arresting the same two individuals that were on the westbound trip that we got them 10 days prior. Same two showed up. And then they obviously arrested a few other people. And then they had also arrested a female. And the female was the head of it in the California area. And she had flown in to oversee the transaction. So, yeah.
That's a good case. That's impressive.
That was a, yeah. And I think I guess maybe because of the stop 10 days prior, is what makes the whole story. Just because, what are the odds of that happening? I mean, how do you explain that?
Yeah.
How do you explain that?
It's crazy. I missed a load in a gas tank once, and yeah, I'll never miss one again. But yeah, that was the first one. I went back and watched my video camera, which I never do. And every time I went by the gas tank, he said, "Please don't find it. Please don't find it." So I'm sitting in the median, just like stewing. I was like, "Oh my god!" So Pennsylvania saved my ass on that one. But yeah, I missed it in a gas tank.
Yeah. I think the other, you brought one up, the bank robber, and I don't know if you remember that story or not, but I had stopped a young Asian male in a Chevy Blazer going east. It was I want to say it was January 1st, and I was working by myself, and coming from Colorado going to New York. Said he was in the music business, but he was super polite, more so than what the interaction you would have is with someone from the military or from the law enforcement profession, just over the top. And he, I walked my dog by myself, which was a big no-no. But I did it. And he had some big hockey style bags in the back cargo area. And he, at the time, our unit had gotten a lot of dope coming out of British Columbia, Canada, and so we were getting a lot of BC bud and in those same kind of bags. And of course, my mind immediately goes there. And so he gets out, and I ask him, here I am, getting ready to search it by myself, which is a big no-no as well. Ask him if he's got any weapons. He's like, I got a handgun and a backpack behind the driver's seat. I'm like, okay, sit on the guardrail. Now you got to remember, back in the day, guys used to handcuff people to the guardrails. You could never get away with the stuff today that some of them guys used to do back then. There's no way. So I'm like, go ahead and just sit on the guardrail. I'm going to go get that. So I open up the backpack, and he's got a hockey. He's not a hockey. He's got a ski mask. He's got camo gear. He's got several handguns. And then I see this long wire and on the end of it is something I had never seen before. It was a blasting cap detonator. And, you know, I just, it was like everything, kind of like when you're like in your first pursuit and then things are like slow motion, you get tunnel vision, everything was slow motion. And I just remember turning and saying, if you move, I'll shoot you. And I said, get on the ground. And he was like, yes, ma'am, no problem, you know.
Wow.
But he ended up having like 1,500 rounds of ammo, a bunch of stolen ARs from the military, all kinds of camo gear, stolen license plates, a federal bank robber in Texas. And he got extradited down there. And we learned from him through his attorney that when I had initially stopped him, it took him probably, I don't know, I want to say like 2 miles to pull over. And of course, he's up against the guardrail. And we had learned that his comment was that he had thought about shooting it out with me. But when I walked up to the car, I looked like a mother and I might have kids at home. So that's the only thing. And I can remember telling that story to several classes over the years, like after it first happened, and, you know, kind of getting emotional about it because you don't really think of those things at the time, you know, your adrenaline's going, but here this guy was initially, he was going to kill me. And then apparently something clicked in his head and I looked like a mom, which I didn't even have kids at the time. So, you know, beneficial that, I mean, who knows if I had walked up, because we've all done it, where you get pissed off, somebody takes too long to pull over and you walk up and you're mad, like, why didn't you pull over? I told you to pull over, you know, but I didn't. I just, you know, I guess that probably could go back to a piece of advice for younger guys. It's like not only staying humble, but, you know, treating people with respect, you know, kill them with kindness and even the bad guys. I mean, what would have happened? It could be anybody's stop. I'm sure you've had things as well. You know, what would have happened if you walk up there with a bad attitude? You know, you have a bad day and you give somebody a bunch of crap and, you know, for really no reason. And I didn't do that day. But, you know, treating people with respect, and it goes back to that old saying, like, act nice, but think mean.
Yeah, no, I especially with interdiction, I mean, ultimately we want to befriend people in like 7 to 10 minutes. Of course, with traffic stop, we want to befriend them. Ultimately, we'd love to have consent to search their car, things along those lines. And having a bad attitude or being a jerk at any point during that traffic stop is going to not allow that to happen, more than likely. So we end all our podcasts with one question. We teach for Justice Academy. So what is your definition of justice?
You know, I'm going to give you an example. I think two things. I think it depends on the situation. And what I mean by that is that over the years doing interdiction, there are probably, I could count on one hand the time that I genuinely felt bad for the person that I was arresting, because I knew that they were in a bad way. And I knew that they were backed into a corner and they did what they had to do. And now that I have kids, I think to myself, you never know what you would do for your kids or your family to survive. So is it justice when you arrest them and because they're in a bad way or they're in a bad situation and they did what they had to do? I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer for that question. I think that it depends on the situation. I think that ultimately, if you're putting other people in harm, you gotta pay the piper. You have to be held accountable, and you have to answer for what you've done. And whatever that justice is deemed necessary is sometimes could be with 12 people, could be you got to just answer to the man upstairs.
Yeah, that's what I always look at. It's like I I'm super sympathetic with a lot of the smugglers because they're in a bad situation. They're vulnerable to get preyed on by these, drug trafficking organizations. They're typically, in my scenario, is not like someone that was like in that like culture. It's usually someone that's vulnerable in a bad situation. They're probably doing a lot of things to just make ends meet, and they're offered an opportunity to make an exorbitant amount of money to transport something illegal across the country. But then I look at it, it's like, well, what's society say? So, collectively as a society, if you're going against that and if you're putting people in harm in those types of situations, you're bringing fentanyl into communities. I get it. You're doing it for your own personal reasons. That it's a hard one for me too. But you're putting, you're looking out for your kids or your family, your intermediate family, and you don't have any other means to do that. But then by transporting that, you're putting other families at risk, and society says, no, you can't do that. So am I understanding and sympathetic to that meal? Sure. But society says I have a job to do, and you're doing something illegal and you just got caught. So society says kind of what
and ultimately I don't make the level of justice, the levels, that was always something above our pay grade. And and you touched on this, we have a job to do and we have to do that job.
Yeah. It's not us that ultimately makes the decision. Our portion's pretty simple. It's pretty much black and white, what you can and can't do, and what we can and can't do. So, and then that's up to the judicial system on that end. But I appreciate you. Cody's actually waiting. He's been waiting 20 minutes, so I feel bad. But
I took up way too much of your time.
No, it's I could talk to you all day. I love it. But maybe after everything on the other end, maybe we'll have another one.
Yeah. That sounds good. I'd like that. Kenny, I really appreciate you. I appreciate what you do. And, thank you for reaching out and doing this. I know I'm not the only one that is appreciative of it, and talking to the old guys and remembering that we're still here. So thank you.
I'm grateful. I'm beyond grateful that you joined me. I appreciate that, but I'm happy that you're here.
Appreciate that. You stay safe, and like I said, tell Cody that I said hello.
Absolutely. Thank you again.
All right, brother.
Bye.